They poured wine on him in front of 200 people, laughed while it dripped down his suit, called him worthless, told him he didn't belong. What they didn't know: he owned the company. He controlled the $900 million deal they were celebrating. And with one phone call, he was about to take it all away. Stay with me, because what happens next will remind you why you should never judge someone by how they look. This is a true lesson about respect, dignity, and the moment when the underestimated become unstoppable. Welcome to the Fortune Files channel. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and share your thoughts on the story, as well as where you are watching from. You know those moments when you walk into a room and immediately feel like you don't belong? Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because people look at you a certain way. They size you up in seconds and decide your worth before you even speak. That's exactly what happened to Daniel Carter on a warm Friday evening in downtown Seattle. The Grand Pacific Hotel ballroom was lit up like a dream. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, throwing soft golden light across white marble floors. Round tables covered in silk cloths filled the space, each one decorated with fresh roses and candles. A live band played jazz in the corner, the kind of smooth music that made everything feel expensive. The air smelled like perfume, cologne, and money. This wasn't just any party. This was the event of the year for Silverstone Tech Industries. Everyone who mattered in the Seattle business world was there. Executives in designer suits. Socialites in dresses that cost more than most people's cars. Photographers capturing every smile, every handshake, every moment that would end up on someone's social media. And right in the middle of all that shine and glamour, there was one name on everyone's lips. Silverstone Tech had just landed a massive deal. $900 million. The biggest contract in the company's history. They were partnering with some mysterious investor, someone nobody had met yet. The rumor mill was going crazy. Who was this person? Where did they come from? Why all the secrecy? Daniel walked through the main entrance wearing a simple charcoal suit. Nothing flashy. No designer labels. Just clean, neat, professional. His shoes were polished but not new. His watch was nice, but not the kind that screamed for attention. He looked normal. And in a room full of people trying to outdress each other, normal made you invisible. Or worse, it made you look like you didn't belong. The security guard at the door looked him up and down, his eyes pausing just a bit too long. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his tone polite but suspicious. "Are you with the catering staff?" Daniel smiled softly and pulled out a thick black invitation card from his jacket pocket. It had a silver embossed seal on it, the kind you couldn't fake. The guard's face changed instantly. "Oh, my apologies, sir. Please go right in." But the look in his eyes said what his mouth didn't. How did this guy get one of those? Inside, Daniel moved slowly through the crowd, his hands relaxed at his sides, his eyes taking in everything. He watched people laugh too loud at jokes that weren't funny. He saw businessmen clinking glasses like they'd just conquered the world. He noticed women whispering behind their hands, pointing at diamonds, at dresses, at who was standing next to who. Nobody noticed him. And that was fine. Daniel had learned a long time ago that the most powerful people in the room are often the quietest ones. He stopped at the bar and ordered a glass of water. The bartender served him quickly, but the man next to him in a cream-colored tuxedo cut right in front of him, waving a $100 bill. "Champagne, top shelf. And make it quick." The bartender jumped to serve him first. Daniel just stepped aside and waited. No point in making a scene. Not yet. Near the stage, a woman's voice boomed through the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Silverstone Tech Gala." The crowd erupted in applause. Heads turned. Phones came out. Everyone wanted to be part of this moment. The host continued, his voice dripping with excitement. "Tonight, we celebrate a partnership that will change everything. $900 million. A deal that puts Silverstone Tech at the top of the industry." More applause. More flashing cameras. More inflated egos filling the room like helium balloons. Then she appeared. Victoria Silverstone stepped onto the stage like a queen entering her throne room. Her dress was emerald green, tight and shimmering, catching every light in the room. Her heels clicked with authority. Her blonde hair was swept up in an elegant twist. Diamond earrings sparkled at her neck. She waved to the crowd with a smile that looked perfect but didn't quite reach her eyes. Beside her stood her husband, Gregory Silverstone, the CEO. Tall, broad-shouldered, silver hair slicked back. He wore confidence like a second suit. The kind of man who believed the world owed him respect just for showing up. Daniel watched from the back, near a marble column, far enough to stay out of the spotlight but close enough to see everything. His expression stayed calm, almost unreadable. Inside, though, he was taking notes. Watching. Waiting. Because Daniel wasn't just a guest at this party. He was the reason this party existed. He was the mystery investor. The man behind the $900 million deal. The one person in this entire room who actually held all the cards. But nobody knew that. Not yet. And as the crowd cheered and the cameras flashed and the Silverstones soaked up the glory, Daniel stood quietly in the shadows, invisible to a room full of people who thought they mattered more than him. That was about to change. Have you ever been in a place where people treat you like you're less than human? Where they don't even try to hide their contempt? That's what started happening to Daniel the moment he moved deeper into the ballroom. Whispers followed him like a shadow. Who is that guy? I don't recognize him. Is he supposed to be here? Maybe he's someone's assistant. Daniel kept his face neutral, but he heard every word. He'd dealt with this his whole life. Growing up in a small town with nothing, working 3 jobs to put himself through college, building his wealth slowly and quietly while others flaunted theirs. He knew what it felt like to be underestimated. But tonight, it stung a little more. Because tonight, these people were celebrating his money, his deal, his investment. And they didn't even know it. A woman in a silver sequin dress walked past him, clutching her designer purse a little tighter as she did. Like he might snatch it. Another man in a tailored navy suit glanced at him and muttered to his friend, "Security's getting lazy. They're letting anyone in now." Daniel ordered another water at the bar. The same bartender who'd served him before barely made eye contact this time. He was too busy laughing at some joke a wealthy guest had made. Then Gregory Silverstone stepped off the stage. He walked through the crowd like a shark through water, shaking hands, slapping backs, soaking in the attention. His eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on Daniel. He paused. His smile faded just a bit. Then he started walking toward him. Daniel straightened slightly, his hands still relaxed, his breathing steady. Gregory stopped right in front of him, his cologne overpowering. "Hey there, buddy," he said, his tone fake friendly. "You doing okay? You look a little lost." "I'm fine," Daniel replied calmly. "Just enjoying the event." Gregory's eyes narrowed. "Right. Enjoying it. Look, no offense, but this section is for VIP guests only. The general area is over there." He pointed toward the back corner, near the kitchen doors. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," Daniel said, his voice steady. Gregory laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind of laugh people use when they're annoyed but trying to stay polite in public. "Listen, man, I don't know who gave you that invite, but this is a private event. If you're here looking for work, we're not hiring tonight." A few people nearby turned to watch. Phones started lifting. Daniel didn't move. "I'm not looking for work." "Then what are you doing here?" Gregory's voice got sharper. Before Daniel could respond, Victoria glided over, her heels clicking like a countdown. She looked Daniel up and down with the kind of expression you'd give to a stain on your carpet. "Gregory, darling, what's going on?" she asked, but her eyes stayed on Daniel. "Just a little confusion," Gregory said. "This guy thinks he belongs in VIP." Victoria's lips curled into a cold smile. "Oh, sweetie," she said to Daniel, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "If you needed extra cash tonight, you should have applied with the catering company. Pretending to be a guest isn't going to work out for you." The small crowd around them grew. More whispers. More phones recording. Daniel kept his voice low and even. "I'm not pretending to be anything." Victoria picked up a glass of red wine from a passing server's tray. She held it delicately, swirling it like she was about to taste something expensive. "You know what your problem is," she said. "You don't know your place." She stepped closer, holding the glass near his chest. "Here," she said. "Take this to table 7. They've been waiting." Daniel didn't reach for the glass. He just looked at her, his eyes calm but piercing. That seemed to irritate her even more. "Seriously," she said, her voice rising. "You're really going to stand here and embarrass yourself?" Gregory stepped in, snatching the wine from her hand. "Let me handle this." He lifted the glass high, making sure everyone could see. The room went quiet, all eyes on them now. Cameras zoomed in. "Maybe this will help you understand," Gregory said. And then he poured the entire glass of wine onto Daniel's suit. The liquid splashed dark red across his chest, dripping down his jacket, soaking into the fabric. A few drops hit his collar and slid down his neck. Gasps erupted. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, he actually did that." Another voice murmured, "That's insane." Victoria laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "Now maybe he'll get the message." Daniel stood completely still. He didn't flinch, didn't shout, didn't react at all. He just reached up slowly and wiped a single drop of wine from his jaw with 2 fingers. Then he adjusted his jacket, straightened his shoulders, and looked Gregory Silverstone directly in the eyes. For a moment, something passed between them. Gregory's smirk faltered. Just for a second, he looked uncertain. Like he'd just poked something he shouldn't have. But the moment passed. Gregory puffed his chest out again, feeding off the crowd's energy. Daniel turned without a word and walked toward the exit. His steps were slow, measured, calm. Like a man who knew exactly where he was going and exactly what was about to happen next. A server whispered as he passed, "That man just walked out like he owns the place." Her coworker whispered back, "Maybe he does." Nobody believed it. But outside, in the quiet hallway, Daniel pulled out his phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. One call. One message. Pull the deal. Shut it all down. Now. The voice on the other end replied instantly. "Understood, sir." Daniel ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. His face remained expressionless, but inside, the gears were already turning. The fallout was about to begin. You ever notice how fast everything can change? 1 second, people are on top of the world. The next, the floor disappears from under them. That's exactly what happened in the Grand Pacific Ballroom while Daniel walked out into the cool Seattle night. Inside, the party was still going strong. Music played. People laughed. Glasses clinked. Victoria and Gregory were back on stage, soaking in applause, completely unaware that their world was about to collapse. Then it started. The music cut off mid-song. Just stopped. The silence hit like a punch. People looked around, confused. The host tapped his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a small technical difficulty. Just bear with us for 1 moment." But it wasn't technical. A man in a gray suit rushed onto the stage, his phone pressed against his ear, his face pale. He whispered something to the host. The host's eyes went wide. His smile disappeared. Gregory noticed and walked over, irritated. "What's going on? Why did we stop?" The man in gray looked like he might be sick. "Sir, we have a problem. The deal, it's been suspended." Gregory blinked. "What?" "The contract. It's been suspended. Effective immediately." The room erupted. Voices rose in confusion and panic. "Suspended? How? You can't just suspend a $900 million deal. Who authorized this?" Victoria grabbed Gregory's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging in. "Fix this. Now." Gregory's voice cracked. "I don't understand. Who gave that order?" The man in gray swallowed hard. "It came from the investor. The main partner. He pulled everything." "He." Victoria's voice went shrill. "Who is he?" "We don't even know who the investor is." Before anyone could answer, phones around the room started buzzing. All at once. Like a swarm of angry bees. Executives pulled out their devices, their faces dropping as they read their screens. "All accounts tied to Silverstone are frozen. Our investors are pulling out. The stock is crashing. It's dropping fast." Panic spread like wildfire. People started shouting. Some headed for the exits. Others stood frozen, staring at their phones in disbelief. Then someone near the back held up their phone. Wait. Look at this. A video was playing. The clip showed Gregory pouring wine on Daniel. The splash. The cruelty. Victoria's mocking laugh. Daniel walking out with quiet dignity. The caption read, "They humiliated the wrong man. He walked out like he owned the place." The video was spreading fast. Shares, comments, retweets. It was going viral in real time. Someone gasped. "That's the guy they just destroyed." Another voice added, "Why would that matter? He was nobody." Then a notification flashed across the main display screens in the ballroom. Big. Bold. Impossible to miss. Silverstone Tech contract terminated. Partnership dissolved. The room went silent. You could hear people breathing. Gregory stared at the screen like it was written in a language he didn't understand. Terminated? No warning? No negotiation? A board member pushed through the crowd, his face red with fury. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I haven't done anything." Gregory shouted back. "You insulted the man who funded this entire deal," the board member roared. "You humiliated him in front of 200 people." Victoria's voice trembled. "What are you talking about? That was nobody. He was just some guy who snuck in." The board member's laugh was bitter and cold. "That was Daniel Carter. He owns Pacific Horizon Investments. He's the mystery partner. He's the man behind the $900 million. And you poured wine on him like he was garbage." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Victoria's face went white. Her hand flew to her mouth. Gregory's knees buckled slightly. "No. That's impossible." "It's not," the board member said. "And now we're done. All of us." Around the room, reality set in. Guests started backing away from the Silverstones like they were contagious. Investors made calls, cutting ties. Partners distanced themselves. Photographers kept snapping pictures, but now they weren't celebrating. They were documenting a disaster. A server near the wall whispered to her coworker, "I told you. That man didn't walk like staff." Her coworker nodded slowly. They messed with the wrong person. Gregory tried to regain control, but his voice shook. "We can fix this. We'll call him. Apologize. Offer him anything." The board member just shook his head. "It's too late. You don't come back from this." Victoria looked around desperately, mascara starting to run as her eyes filled with tears. This can't be happening. Not like this. But it was. The deal was gone. The investors were gone. The company's value was tanking. Their reputation was in ruins. And it had all happened in less than 20 minutes. Meanwhile, outside in the cool night air, Daniel walked slowly down the sidewalk. His suit still stained with wine. His expression calm. His phone buzzed with updates, but he didn't need to check it. He knew exactly what was happening. A couple passed by, staring at the wine on his jacket. The woman whispered, "Isn't that the guy from the video?" The man looked closer. "Yeah, that's him." They watched him walk away, his posture straight, his step steady. Like a man who just won a war without firing a shot. Inside the ballroom, chaos reigned. But Daniel didn't look back. He didn't need to. He'd made his point. Respect isn't about the clothes you wear or the money you show off. It's about how you treat people when you think nobody's watching. And Gregory and Victoria Silverstone? They just learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Morning came harsh and unforgiving for Gregory and Victoria Silverstone. You know that feeling when you wake up and for just 1 second, everything's normal? Then reality crashes in and you remember your life is falling apart? That's where they were. Victoria sat on the edge of their king-sized bed, still in yesterday's clothes, makeup smeared down her face. Her phone lay beside her, screen cracked from where she'd thrown it against the wall at 3 a.m. It hadn't stopped buzzing all night. Messages, emails, news alerts. All bad. Gregory paced the bedroom floor, his expensive shirt wrinkled and untucked, his silver hair a mess. Dark circles hung under his eyes. He'd been on the phone for hours, calling every contact he had. Nobody wanted to talk. "We're pulling our investment." "I'm sorry, Gregory, But we can't be associated with this. Have you seen the news? It's everywhere. Don't call this number again. By sunrise, the headlines were brutal. Tech CEO humiliates mystery investor, loses $900 million deal. Silverstone Tech collapses after public disrespect caught on camera. Pride before the fall, how one glass of wine destroyed an empire. The video had been viewed millions of times. People weren't just watching it. They were dissecting it. Analyzing every moment. Every smirk. Every cruel word. The internet had decided who the villains were, and they weren't letting go. Comments flooded in from everywhere. Imagine being so arrogant you don't even check who you're disrespecting. This is what happens when you judge people by their clothes instead of their character. That man walked out with more dignity than they'll ever have. By mid-morning, investors had bailed completely. Partners who'd been kissing up to them yesterday were now ghosting their calls. The board of directors held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously. Gregory was out. Victoria's position as head of PR? Gone. They were done. The company's stock crashed so hard it looked like someone had pushed it off a cliff. Silverstone Tech, which had been valued at over $2 billion, was now worth less than the furniture in the office. Victoria finally spoke, her voice cracked and raw. We have to talk to him. Gregory stopped pacing. Who? Daniel Carter. We have to apologize. Beg if we have to. If we don't, we lose everything. Gregory wanted to argue, wanted to say his pride wouldn't allow it. But his pride had already cost them everything. He nodded weakly. They drove across Seattle in silence. The city looked different in daylight. Less glamorous. More real. They passed by their favorite restaurants, the country club where they'd held memberships, the luxury stores where Victoria used to shop without checking price tags. All of that was gone now. Daniel's neighborhood surprised them. It wasn't flashy. No massive gates. No security guards. Just a quiet street with modest homes and green lawns. Trees lined the sidewalk. Kids rode bikes. It looked normal. Victoria whispered, "He lives here." Gregory didn't answer. He was too busy trying to figure out what to say. They pulled up to a simple two-story house with a neat front yard. Clean, well-maintained, but not the mansion they'd expected. Gregory parked and they sat there for a moment, neither wanting to be the first to move. Finally, Victoria opened her door. "Let's get this over with." They walked to the front door like prisoners heading to sentencing. Gregory pressed the doorbell. They heard footsteps inside, slow and measured. The door opened. Daniel stood there in jeans and a simple gray t-shirt. No wine stain anymore. No fancy suit. Just a regular guy at home on a Saturday morning. He looked at them with calm, steady eyes. Not angry. Not smug. Just observant. Victoria's carefully prepared speech died in her throat. She opened her mouth, and what came out was broken. "We were wrong." Her voice cracked. Tears started falling, smudging what was left of her makeup. "We treated you like you were nothing. Like you didn't matter. And we were so wrong. Please. Please let us fix this." Gregory stepped forward, his own voice shaking. "We've lost everything. The company, our reputation, our future. All of it. I know we don't deserve your mercy, but I'm asking for it anyway. Just give us a chance to make this right." Daniel stepped back from the doorway but didn't invite them inside. He leaned against the frame, his arms crossed loosely. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. "You didn't lose everything today," he said. "You lost it the moment you decided that people's worth was based on how they looked or how much they seemed to have." Victoria sobbed. Gregory's jaw clenched. Daniel continued, his tone thoughtful, like he'd been thinking about this all night. "You built a world where you believed disrespect had no consequences. Where you could pour wine on someone, laugh at them, humiliate them, and walk away like it meant nothing. You thought you were untouchable." "We didn't know who you were," Victoria whispered. And that's when Daniel's expression changed. Just slightly. A sadness crossed his face. "That's exactly the problem," he said softly. "You didn't care who I was. You saw someone you thought was beneath you, and you treated them like garbage. What if I really had been just a regular guy trying to attend an event? Would that have made it okay? Gregory and Victoria stood silent. They had no answer. The truth is, Daniel continued, I've been that regular guy. I grew up with nothing. I worked jobs people like you wouldn't even notice. I built everything from the ground up. And I never forgot what it felt like to be invisible. To be dismissed. To be treated like I didn't matter. He straightened up, his voice growing firmer. So when you asked if there's anything you can do, the answer is no. The deal is gone. The trust is gone. And this door is closed. Victoria reached out desperately. Please. We'll do anything. Daniel shook his head once. Final. Absolute. Walk carefully from now on, he said quietly. The world is smaller than you think. And the people you step on today might be the ones holding your future tomorrow. He stepped back into his house and closed the door gently. Not a slam. Just a quiet, definitive click. Gregory and Victoria stood on the porch, their reflections visible in the door's glass window. They looked small, broken, lost. They had come looking for mercy and found accountability instead. And as they walked back to their car, the weight of their choices pressed down on them like gravity they couldn't escape. Let me tell you what happened after that door closed. Because this isn't just about one man's revenge or one couple's downfall. This is about something bigger. Something we all need to hear. Daniel went back to his normal life. He didn't post about what happened. Didn't give interviews. Didn't try to milk his 15 minutes of fame. He just kept doing what he'd always done. Building, investing, helping businesses grow. Quietly. Humbly. Without needing the spotlight. But the story? The story took on a life of its own. Within a week, that video had been seen by over 50 million people. News outlets picked it up. Business magazines wrote think pieces about it. Leadership experts used it in seminars. People from all walks of life shared their own stories of being underestimated, dismissed, or humiliated because someone judged them too quickly. A waitress in Chicago wrote, I had a customer pour coffee on me once because I accidentally brought the wrong order. She never apologized. Seeing this gives me hope that karma is real. A young black man in Atlanta posted, I get followed in stores. Security asks for my ID at events I was invited to. This happens all the time. This story reminds me I'm not crazy. It's real and it's wrong. An elderly immigrant shared, people talk slow to me like I'm stupid because of my accent. They don't know I have 2 master's degrees. Respect shouldn't be based on assumptions. The story resonated because it wasn't really about money or business deals. It was about dignity. About how we treat each other when we think there's no consequence. About the damage we do with our casual cruelty. Gregory and Victoria? Their fall was complete. Silverstone Tech declared bankruptcy within 3 months. The company that had once been a giant in the industry was bought out for parts. The employees lost their jobs. The investors lost millions. And at the center of it all were 2 people who'd let arrogance blind them to basic human decency. Victoria tried to reinvent herself. She started a blog about learning from mistakes and the importance of humility. But people saw through it. The comments were brutal. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. Gregory attempted to start a consulting firm. It failed within 6 months. Nobody wanted advice from the man who destroyed his own empire in one night. They sold their mansion. Downsized to a small apartment. Victoria got a job in marketing at a mid-level firm. Gregory worked in sales. They paid their bills, but the life they'd known was gone forever. And here's the thing, that should have been the end. But about a year later, something unexpected happened. Victoria was at a coffee shop, waiting in line, when she noticed someone ahead of her couldn't pay for their order. A young woman, probably college-aged, was frantically searching through her bag for her wallet. I'm so sorry, the girl kept saying. I thought I had it. I'm so sorry. The barista looked annoyed. The people in line started sighing impatiently. And Victoria? Old Victoria would have rolled her eyes and tapped her foot. But new Victoria, the one who'd spent a year living with the consequences of her cruelty, did something different. She stepped forward. I'll cover it. The young woman turned, surprised. Oh, you don't have to. I know, Victoria said quietly. But I want to. She paid for the girl's coffee and her own. As they waited at the pickup counter, the young woman smiled. Thank you so much. I'm having the worst day. This really helps. Victoria nodded. We all have those days. She left the coffee shop feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not pride. Not satisfaction. Just a small piece of peace. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't erasing what she'd done. But it was a start. Meanwhile, Daniel's life continued to grow. Not because of the publicity, but because of who he'd always been. He invested in small businesses that bigger investors ignored. He mentored young entrepreneurs from backgrounds like his. He built hospitals in underfunded communities. He did all of it without press releases or photo ops. One day, a journalist tracked him down and asked for an interview. People want to know your story, she said. How you went from nothing to everything. How you handled what happened at that gala. Daniel smiled politely. My story isn't special. Lots of people work hard and build something from nothing. As for that night, I just stood up for my dignity. Anyone would do the same. But the way you did it, the journalist pressed. The way you walked out. The way you responded. That's what people remember. Daniel thought for a moment. Then I hope they remember this. Respect isn't something you give to people because of their title or their bank account. It's something you give because they're human. Period. The moment we forget that, we lose something important. And it's a lot harder to get back than people think. The interview never ran. Daniel asked for it to be pulled. He didn't need the attention. But his words spread anyway. People quoted them. Teachers shared them with students. Parents repeated them to their kids. Because in a world that's obsessed with status and appearances, that message cut through the noise. So what's the lesson here? What's the point of this whole story? It's simple, really. Treat people with respect. Not because of what they can do for you. Not because you're afraid of who they might be. But because it's the right thing to do. Because you never know what someone's been through. Because today's stranger might be tomorrow's ally. Because cruelty has a cost, even when you think nobody's keeping score. Gregory and Victoria learned that the hard way. They lost everything because they forgot something basic. Your character is measured by how you treat people who can't do anything for you. Daniel never forgot it. And that's why he won. Not because he was richer or smarter or more powerful. But because when the moment came to respond to cruelty, he chose dignity. He chose truth. He chose to let his actions speak louder than his words. And in the end, that made all the difference. So the next time you're tempted to judge someone by their clothes, their car, their job, or the size of their house, remember this story. Remember that the person you dismiss today might be the person you need tomorrow. Remember that respect costs nothing but means everything. And remember that the world is watching, even when you think it isn't. Walk carefully. Treat people well. And never, ever pour wine on someone unless you're ready to drink from the same cup. That's the lesson. That's the truth. And that's the end of this story.